Hi, welcome everybody to DNI by Charcha, an initiative by India Diversity Forum. IDF is a Section 8 company committed to eliminating discrimination at the workplace. One of our flagship events is called DNI by Charcha. Set up in 2021, we are committed to the cause of ensuring that no organization exists with discrimination at the workplace. DNI by Charcha brings together thought leaders and industry experts across different industries to engage in meaningful conversations around diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and justice at the workplace. This month, we are excited to explore the theme of best practices from sources to onboarding. We're joined by our esteemed leaders and panelists from our charter member organizations with us here today, who will help us dive into a deep, crucial understanding of what it really means when we talk about best practices and what it means to go from sourcing some of these best practices to implementing them at the workplace and beyond just onboarding. It will help us understand a clear roadmap of inclusive, bias free, employee centric strategies that enhance hiring quality, candidate experience, and onboarding effectiveness. And just beyond just policies and really focus on how can that interaction help employees grow as much as it helps companies grow. Today, we're joined by our esteemed speakers. We have Rukmini, who's the Human Resource Manager at Quest Software, who's been a charter member with IDF. And we're also joined by Dr. Saamta Jain, who's the Chief People Officer of Jewelex Group. Our moderator for today is also a charter member, Pallavi Kumari, Director, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion and CSR, India, US, Mexico, and Philippines from AGS. Um, Over to you now, Pallavi. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for this introducing this very important, area of work. We keep talking about, the talent, right, in the workplace. And the whole journey begins when we say sourcing, onboarding, right? That is the frontline work. And today we have our amazing leaders who will be sharing the best practices. And I'm very happy to moderate this session. Um, we will be talking about live examples of what has worked for the organizations and, in different segments. Our leaders are coming with immense experience from various sectors, and let's look forward to learning from them and growing with them. Okay, so we'll start with the first question for Rukmini. So we keep, one of the DI strategy for sourcing is, leveraging the employee resource groups in the organization. Most of the organizations do have, DI working groups or councils also in place. So we would like to understand, Rukmini, from you, if you can share from your experience how this strategy has helped, supporting the new employees during the onboarding process.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pallavi, for that lovely introduction of today's session. I think ERGs are evolving over time now because if you see a decade or 15 years back, this concept is very new to India. When you speak from a perspective of the Indian workforce, of course, it was there in parallel workforces, but it was not very much understood here. And the organizations have over time done such a great job where employees on voluntary basis have begun creating so many ERGs. And these ERGs stand for support and advocacy, help in professional development, help you network, build cultural awareness. If I have to bring my own example, so I work out of India, but I'm proud to say that I have made colleagues and friends who sit out of India, right? Out country. And we are like so close with each other. They're sitting right next to me, right next to my desk. It's like that. So this happened only because of ERGs. Because as a new joiner, when they come into the organization, they're so overwhelmed, right? There's so much to learn, understand, engage, understand the work culture, and I think ERGs play one of the major roles because it's very important that talking about DEI, ERGs, the current atmosphere of DEI that's happening across the world, across the globe, what it impacts how it creates an impact to your organization right at the start, on their day one, it should be integrated as a part of the induction session. That's what we do. We ensure to spend about 10 to 15 minutes talking to them as to what the ERGs are, show them what's happening, what's upcoming in that month, what's happened in the previous 3 months, where they can join, how they can participate. Because I think this helps new joiners, feel seen, heard, and also valued beyond their job title. They'll be like, oh, it's also a sense of pride, right? It instills a sense of pride in them to say that, oh, my organization also does this. Of course, it would be there on our websites to read about it, but not many would actually delve into, that time to actually read or understand what's happening, because sometimes still, from an Indian context, ERGs is seen as a very foreign concept. They don't like really want to understand what ERGs are, but it's all changing now because I'm sure a lot of organizations would have this buddy system where when someone joins, we buddy them up, and then we ensure that they're handholded for the first 3 months. They have a comfortable journey. So I think to sum it up, ERGs are critical enablers of belongingness, trust, and also creating that employee success from day one. Because I think that's the role nowadays that ERGs are actually playing.
Thank you so much, Rukmini. I think that's very powerful, and especially like you mentioned that um, relating with the buddy as well. When you see someone from your group, and when you know that there are people like me in the organization, it also shows the commitment of the organization live, right? It's a showcasing the commitment. Thanks for bringing that up. Dr. Samta, would you like to add something here from your experience?
Surely. I think ERG have been there for some time, and yet it has to be strengthened in the coming years. Future lies in ERG because of the generational intelligence that we are tapping. So, employee resource groups in many companies, they will be called as buddy systems. In some groups, they would be called as mentors. In some groups, they would be called as gurus. Whatever they are called and rechristened as, they become a very important format for laying the basic foundation for the new joinees. Like I will thread in on what Rukmani says, that yes, they are the building blocks, because day one and you have to start working, and you have to not only start working as a checklist, you have to start working as a pride with the organization, and that pride comes with ERG systems. In our case, we have multiplicity of diversity inside, so ERGs have been very, very prominently active. And I think they do wonders because they also check on the attrition rates of my company. They also check on the productivity and efficiency at each layer. And more importantly, the association and the assemblance of the new person. I think that gets into a driving mode. It's something like you are uh, putting a seed into the soil, and that soil gives all the foundation to that seed to grow in terms of keeping it intact, even when it is dark, no sunlight, keeping it intact where it is and enable it to grow. So ERGs are really, really important.
Beautifully put, Dr. Samta. Um, so, we are seeing how we can leverage ERGs from the example shared by our leaders. So we all know ERGs does help also in sourcing, right? In my experience, I have seen that you can leverage the ERGs for, sourcing profiles from the different diverse groups. Then, in onboarding, we got several examples of how do you leverage ERGs for retention, career advancement, right? All of it falls in place because you have someone to go to, and you are not working in silo, right? Your employees are leading and partnering with you to support the whole process. So wonderful. Thanks a lot. And with that, we move to the next question, which we will direct to Dr. Samta. uh, we keep talking about how do we manage biases in the hiring process, right? That's what we keep talking about. It's the most commonly and over talked topic in DEI space, and I'm sure all of us have witnessed it and been a part of such conversations. Now, today we want to understand what are some measures that, in your experience, you have seen that is put in place and it helps to check, you know, this whole bias, how it interplays in the sourcing itself, be it the screening, be it the interviews, the overall, recruitment process. So, Dr. Samta, if you can share some of your experiences here, it will really be helpful.
Yeah, so I would first of all say biased is biased.
Yeah.
And that still works because the more we move away from them, the more we are signaling that there is a weak link, but there is a link still, and it is a very much human character. However, because diversity, equity, inclusion will not come if we have that unconscious bias resting in us, we will not go ahead with the whether it is a recruitment strategy, whether it is a retention strategy, we will not go ahead with it. So, in our organization, which flourishes on almost 43% of the women force and 107 plus specially abled people, we make it a conscious effort that when these specially abled people, which are speech and hearing impaired, they should not go through these biases from any part of the employee life cycle, whether it is talent hiring or whether it is exits. So we follow a acronym called as CD. Okay, Hindi CD, but in English we call it SIDI. So, first of all, the sensitization. S stands for sensitization, that starts with me and that starts with my team. That when you are taking up recruitment or talent acquisition, you have to be sensitized or you have to keep yourself reorienting of not being biased because you are the first and the foremost focal point of recruitment, and lead it to the HOD, supervisor, or everybody who is down the line. Very, very important. Second thing is inclusive JDs. I stands for inclusive JDs. The JDs will attract only the talent if they are inclusive because the way an HR can have a bias or an organization can have a bias, a person who is coming, a candidate who is coming for interview can also have a bias. And bias can be in any form. It can have a halo effect, it can have a horn effect, or it can have an unconscious bias, whatever form. So, inclusive JD forming is the core JD of the HR, which is again very, very crucial. D stands for my data analytics in the sense that every interview that the person attends, what is the data that is sounding or giving us hints, whether the interview or whether the candidates who were retained or throughout the employee life cycle, it is not only about onboarding, but also about retaining this diverse workforce. So data analytics for us become very important. So people have to crunch the data. What are the movements of the women, especially in light of the Maternity Act? There is a bias, and let me tell you very openly that 6 months maternity, therefore, there is a bias in the minds of the departments also because the headcount increases. So, data analysis throws light on us, whether it is generation, whether it is gender, whether it is ability, whether it is competency bias, or even sometimes qualification bias. So, interestingly, we work on the D because numbers speak volumes. And I is for interview, wherein we force the people that yes, these are only few of the things when we onboard, we are doing it. Otherwise, throughout the employee's life cycle, we keep on doing multiplicity of things. So, in case of interviews, we ensure that they are structured interviews. They are scientific interviews which are not driven on the identity of the person, on the geographic of the person, or the demography of the person, but on the competency and the capability of the person. And to ensure that it is not polarized, we have panel interviews, we have scientific interviews, and we have BEI, behavioral event interview techniques, STAR techniques. All these methods we implement. Uh, yes, we hire for capability and not for conformity. to any bias, and we ensure that the people who are shortlisted with us, they are shortlisted as a futuristic organization, and they are long lived with us. We become an organization out of them. Equally so, they become human beings out of us.
Beautifully put, Dr. Samta. I think it was a very nice acronym that you have put in place, and I'm sure that, it can stay very easily when we recall this whole, measures that you set, SIDI, right? So it's really worth it, and I think it's beautifully captured of, when you said inclusive JD, right? Most of the time, that is something where it gets missed out, though we have now various technology, various softwares which exist, which can help us, but still, I think, to embed it in the process itself is the journey where many organizations, have initiated their work on. But yeah, that is very, very crucial to have that. So thanks for this beautiful acronym. And I think we'll also hear from Rukmini if you have anything to add on here.
Absolutely. So, in continuation to what Samta was saying, unconscious bias is a continuous challenge because every day is different. Whether you're a recruiter, whether you're a HR business partner, whether you are the CPO, CEO, whoever you are, you have so many stakeholders that you manage on a daily given basis. And one thing that we need to understand is bias, and when unconscious bias is automatic, you wouldn't have even realized that it you would have said or even thought or done something. And we always practice this internally in our organization as well, where we tell everyone, we sensitize everyone that be mindful. That's the best thing you can do, whatever your role is. You may be customer front ending, back ending, anything. Just be a little mindful because you don't know what that person is going through. You don't know from where they are coming, what's happening, because we work across geographies, right? All of us and different backgrounds, different cultures, and we're highly diverse as organizations. So when bias is so automatic, you just don't realize because it comes from your background, from your upbringing, what you would have seen, what you would have learned. So we always tell them take that one small little step, ask the right question, don't hesitate. You just ask, just clarify. Hey, I thought it is this. Can you help me understand? And what we internally do is we do, like we're doing this Charcha discussion right now. Internally, every quarter, we have something called as info bites that we produce internally, where employees participate and we choose a topic and we discuss. And majority of the times, one of the main topic is how to break unconscious bias, how to be mindful, how in your role you can make it more comfortable and safe for the other person. I think that would answer a lot of and make it more easy flow for whoever it is, middle level, top level, bottom level, whoever it is. I think this is something that we always continue to, wherever we get opportunities, we continue to keep reiterating this. That's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rukmini. So I think we have got few very actionable items on the list, based on this conversation so far, right? We're talking about sensitization, understanding each other's culture, being sensitive, being curious, and we need to be polite when being curious, asking if we don't understand of what it means. But sensitization definitely plays a major role, be it the hiring team, hiring managers, we have to ensure that people understand what does diversity mean, right? That is the baseline. Then we spoke about the JDs, the language of the JD. Is it, neutral? Is it inclusive in itself? Are we including the DEI commitment of the organization on the JD? Are we calling out the non-discrimination stance of the organization in the JD? Is that JD, welcoming and open? Does it read as an open JD for any diversity cohort, to feel encouraged to apply, whoever is eligible? Then, a very beautiful point, which was also mentioned about the interview. Structuring the interview and understanding what are some things to avoid. We are all the product of social conditioning, right? And we all know that maybe we are never able to crack all the biases we hold, right? So we are all in on this journey. So maybe building on this whole list of what are the questions to avoid, because as human we flow into the questions, whatever, we feel that we are trying to be considerate and show our concern to the employee, but unfortunately we end up in their personal spaces and get distracted from the JD. Structured interviews helps with that. When we say that, okay, these are the questions to ask, these are some things we want to avoid, and that avoid list can grow on based on the segments, the industry that we are in, the geographical outreach of the organization, and based on where we are on the inclusion journey as well. That really helps. Now we all know what gets measured gets done. So data definitely is very important when we are sourcing. Are we sourcing in inclusive profiles also? Is it showing the diversity profile? When we are screening, are we masking, the gender, the age group, if it is showing up? Many organizations do look at those processes where they mask the gender and the age group, if that is in the CV, to avoid people, you know, acting on their bias based on these two dimensions primarily. Then we can look at, the whole interview process where we can have diverse panels. Many organizations do ensure diversity in the panel itself. They try to see that, when we talk about diversity, it needs to reflect in the interview panels, right? So that is there. Another point which came across very boldly is that are we looking at core competencies and skills? I think now the world is talking about competency and skill, and we need to ensure that the talent who gets in also grows with us. I think that was very well highlighted in the discussion. That are we hiring because we want only diversity in the organization, or are we hiring because we really want this rich diversity to grow with us and also showcase in the leadership levels in the organization in future? They can see their future in organization, right? So I think these are very doable stuff. We can assess where our organization is in the journey and pick some of these activities and try to see how we can, up our game in the diversity journey. With that, we'll move to the next question now to Rukmini. Rukmini, we always talk about, when we say hiring, sourcing, onboarding, we keep talking about, different strategies organizations have. And of course, DEI has a critical role to play in employer branding itself. That's how we are visible to the outside world as an inclusive organization. So, how do you think, in your experience, you have seen organizations, showcase that, DEI commitment when it comes to their positioning in the market?
I think that's a very crucial and sensitive part because it's a long-term commitment, like we say. Uh, it's not because you want to put up a branding, you need to do something, right? It's that double-edged sword. An organization who has it deep rooted just does it and ensures, it is showcased, it is highlighted. It should not be that we are running behind numbers. We want this percentage of a particular community, that percentage of a particular community, and hence we want to showcase it. No, it shouldn't be that way. Because according to my experience, I think branding should be inclusive because you have different stakeholders in branding. Ideally, majority of them, when you say branding, they're only focused on okay, external, what my customers are going to think, what my new joiners or expected workforce is going to think. But you generally, most of the time, we tend to forget a main stakeholder is your current employees because they are our brand ambassadors, right? So branding is something that you need to do internally as well as externally. So when it comes to diversity and inclusion, a few things, a few examples that I can give that we do is we have a lot of these spotlights that we do where employees volunteer and talk about their life journey. We have various ERGs. You must be seeing it in my background that I've put. So we have the Women at Quest ERG who do this very, very nice segment called Her Story, where women volunteer themselves and talk about their journey, talk about their life. And it's so inspiring to understand professionally, personally from where they come. Very similar to this, Quest Colors is one of our ERGs. This is to do with culture and diversity, where they talk of where I come from, right? So, and partnering with a lot of organizations like IDF themselves. So like we're all partners with IDF, right? So like this, we also have partnered with a lot more other organizations, like-minded organizations like WITI, that's WITI, WITI, Pride Circle. Why I'm saying all of these things is because when you see a social media page of an organization, you actually understand who or what they are, right? So that reflects upon their culture, what they are trying to portray, who they are. Uh, is there, authenticity in what is being done? Because there are so many things an organization can do mindfully, right? That reflects their values, purpose, work culture, because it is something that is deeply rooted and integrated. Because storytelling is one of the things, spotlighting is one of the things. Every month there's something to celebrate. Every month there's something to create awareness about, right? So we do a lot of things like we celebrate Black History Month. We ensure that the community is represented. At the same time, there is awareness created. Similarly, we have International Women's History Month, breast cancer awareness, Asian celebrations, National Hispanic Heritage Month, and I mean the diversity calendar just goes on. But then you need to be mindful of what you're doing, how you're reflecting. Your internal workforce is your brand ambassador. And at the same time, branding is very sensitive because I think it has a few pillars. It is the first thing that we always want to think of is to portray how our people think, how our people do, or how our people behave, right? That's the culture. And of course, our EVPs that talk of what we do, which reflects of what we do, it should be well representing what the organization's values are and what practices that we follow. And of course, the other two things would be employee experience and customer experience. I think we can't leave customer aside because they are also our brand ambassadors. And at the same time, these four pillars all put together help portray a brand, right? And a lot of things that organizations do is, like celebrating these spotlights, putting it all across, celebrating these important days. We all must have seen, like, I think June just got over. You all would have seen Pride Month being celebrated across. But the given current global scenario is so challenging, but still we saw organizations coming forward, celebrating, putting those posts. So everyone is standing strong. So I think branding plays that role internally as well as externally.
Thank you so much, Rukmini. Definitely, we have to see how we can leverage our stakeholders, ensure that they get the inclusive experience and they become the ambassadors when we say DEI. And of course, then that all flows into the employer branding, be it internal and external. And I think the more we do, the better it is. Because the idea is that every employee in working with us, or I would say any individual associated with the organization, within or outside, they have that experience when they look at our digital landscape, or if they are within, they are interacting with our physical landscape at workplaces, they should see that we are walking what we are preaching and talking about. So thanks for that. Dr. Samta, would you love to add on to some of the efforts that you have seen working for the organization when it comes to employer branding?
I think it is not a buzzword anymore. If you are not doing it, is suicidal. I would just say you have to do it. You have to manage it judiciously, do though. And first and foremost, it starts in a house. All charity starts from home. So every single person who is from the team of your organization is a lot of brand for yourself, and start cultivating that brand. This brand that you are cultivating will attract talent. And if it is a DI talent already in, it will attract further DI talent. As you rightly mentioned, Pallavi, the digital landscape is not only a tool, but I would say it is a weapon for the recruiter also. And it is a source for us to market the organization which are doing good. Let me be honest here, success begets success. So if one successful case story is because of your digital landscape throwing the projects that yes, X company is hiring specially abled or X company is working with transgenders. I think that creates a very, very beautiful butterfly effect. And why not do that? If it can challenge the status quo of the society, the organization, and the individual identity, I think at both micro and macro levels, if it is an enabler, we should do the branding and branding works for us. The smallest of the effect has ripple effect, it has a whirlpool effect, and therefore it can be used very nicely instead of using it sporadically. We aim to use it in a very, very calendarized, systemic, and scientific format. Too much of branding also kills. So it has been very important a factor that it should be judicious. You should not be shy and you should not go all out. But then you should suggest to the world and the people who are getting attracted to your brand that yes, this is the place. And yes, I echo the same words that Rukmini has, that internal branding has to be coupled with external branding.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samta. Yes, so I think we have heard from our leaders that employer branding on the two aspects, our internal stakeholders and, of course, external as well. And what are the use cases we have, putting that with authenticity outside, that really helps a lot for others to learn as well as to look at our potential stakeholders, right? Be it the potential candidate, because they can see that yes, I am there in this organization, I can apply for the roles that are available. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then we may be little away from the talent pool which is existing and waiting, right? Similarly, internal stakeholders, very, very important. Even in our organization, we have these various ERGs, and we try to see that, there are enough and more stories coming out, because I think all our organizations, they are full of human libraries, if I can say that, right? Irrespective of, calling out the specific diversity group, I would say each individual working with us, being associated with us, really has a very, very rich story they bring, and that living story which they are building upon along with us, right? So it's very powerful to showcase them, understand, learn from them of what they bring to the table. And we never know what touches to whom and what inspires whom. And we further build the journey together. So yes, the key word to take is judicious. We don't want to go overboard in doing anything. We need to assess the sensitivity when we are doing internal branding as well as the sensitivity when we are putting out anything external. So, that is where we will pause here and we'll move to our next question, which we'll direct to Dr. Samta. So we have been talking about various diversity group, most of them belonging to the marginalized and underrepresented communities. So we would like to understand from you, Dr. Samta, that in your experience, how have you seen organizations ensuring equitable access and consideration in the hiring process overall? If you can give us, maybe two or three examples, that will be really helpful for our viewers to understand what we mean when we say equitable access and consideration.
I think very interesting. And that is the root cause, that is the why, how, and how we build this become very important. So I'll just take you through a case, which is a real-time case. I was given a vision to build a team of specially abled people with speech and hearing impairment. Now, first thing, instead of calling them differently abled or anything which was derogatory, we call them specially abled. So our representations, for very clarity of our mind, for HR's mind, we said representation is not in numbers. It is about how do we access those talent which is scattered all across Mumbai. So we are a export company, largest exporters, and we are globally located. But the access to Indian ecosystems were important for us. So, how did we do it? Interestingly, we tapped a lot on the referrals, and we realized while we are tapping on the internal referrals to get the references of these ecosystem and the areas, we started realizing that there is a set of NGOs working in those areas. The set of NGOs which are working not only in the area of specially able people, but also working in the area of only and only women. So why not pick those women areas and build on our 40% to 45% or whatever to 50%, whatever is our vision currently in terms of the gender ratio. Coming back to SAP, so we realized that there are some NGOs which are already into education of the SAP candidates, and we tapped on them. We started building a system of networking. So just like IDF, it is a very huge, good network which has to be capitalized by all the good corporate houses. I would suggest connecting with the NGO became our most paramount and prudent factor. Through connecting with the NGO, we realized that there are skill institutions of the government which were working yet not working, which were there, which were existing yet not existing. Why I'm saying this, why I'm using these terminologies, because being a largest corporate in this field, also we were caught unaware that yes, we can capitalize on these skill-based institutions, government forums, and we started working on skilling these people. So mobilization was done through NGOs by us internally, through referrals. And believe me, one batch built second, second batch built third, and today we have almost completed our sixth batch of hiring. More importantly, I would like to say we became partners with Gems and Jewelry Skill Council of India, wherein we put these people whom we mobilized for 3 months, train them on the various parameters of manufacturing of gems and jewelry, diamond studded jewelry, and then we incorporated them into our team as members. So we capitalize on almost all areas. In any DEI hiring, what is important is making ecosystems. So if I hire 10 people of SAP, but my ecosystem is not welcoming, it will never sustain. So we continuously build the inclusive mindsets in the people. And today, to our surprise, our own team members, the SAP members who are our special members to us, whose deliverables are sometimes even more than the normal candidates, they are taking us through these underrepresented sections of the society. Believe me, it is a very fair shot, and we have taken this shot. And some kind of deliberation is required, some kind of discouraging the unconscious bias is required. But then I think only one thing that survived us through the journeys of whether it is generational DEI, whether it is qualification, whether it is gender, or whether it is a SAP thing, is one thing: consistency. Don't get depressed and disheartened when you have mobilized these candidates and people are not taking them into their departments. Be consistent, be consistent, and be consistent. I think this is the rule of the game, that you will gather underrepresented population in various departments of your organization.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samta, for that. And I think one word definitely we all will resonate and will resonate with us and will connect with is be patient. And we have to keep working towards it, because I think most of it requires a lot of this resilience and patience, and continuously making efforts to partner and onboard leaders, right? So that's a beautiful example of how we can leverage. First is identifying, like you rightly mentioned, then taking a calculated risk, and then preparing people, grooming people for a certain role, and then trying to, see that they can be put in. And the welcoming experience, I think, it really plays a very, very crucial role, like you mentioned, because, if the first batch doesn't get that experience, then, it's very difficult to sustain the initiatives. To make it a part of culture of the organization and sustainable effort, we definitely need to ensure that, the pilot is beautifully, catered to. So thanks for that, Dr. Samta. Rukmini, would you like to add your views on this?
Absolutely. So I have had the privilege to work with a lot of NGOs. On the flip side, especially where I've worked with candidates who are visually impaired, and you all would know about the technology they use, JAWS, right? So I had this requirement where an organization needed 30 employees from this particular NGO and visually impaired. Well, I was very, I think I was just 2 or 3 years into my career then. I was like, oh wow, this is a great, challenge. Let's work. Let's ensure to, fulfill the requirement. So it was a very interesting experience where at that time I didn't know that there were these quotas, right? You have your quotas. You want to have this much percentage of this particular community that you want to have in your organization. This particular NGO, their specification itself was to train visually impaired, right? Either fully or 80% or 100% or 90%. They used to train them completely how to use JAWS and also help them with placements. So I had an interesting conversation with the person who was hiring, and the question was, we just need. I'm like, yes, I understand. We know we need to deliver. We will surely do it. They're like, no, we need it in like 15 days. That's it. So I said, we have a batch, should be completing in 30 days. And then they have a set of, exams and tests to complete. And then you can do the hiring process from there. We have a small step where we go and visit the organization to check if the ecosystem is available. Like, she just mentioned, right? You need to have the environment. Uh, I need to have, comfortable. It could be, the lifts must have, it should just not be inaudible lifts. It should have those buttons that say first floor, second floor, third floor. If you actually see now, a lot of old buildings don't have it. But when you have new infrastructure, they ensure that the lifts actually converse. It's people who are able to see and hear, they don't realize the importance of it. But people who are impaired is only when they realize that, okay, this actually is for them. But, others don't. So when we tried to do that entire analysis and we realized that they're not up to standards, and when we went and informed them, they're like, no, we just want the quota to be filled. And this is way back, but I'm sure things would be different and would have changed now. But then I think something that organizations like Samta just mentioned, saying that you need to first have the environment, have the ecosystem. If you want, for example, want to hire a set of people from a particular community, or say even people with disability, ensure you have ramps, ensure you have the support system, ensure you have the infrastructure. People tend to forget that. They actually do the reverse model. First, they want to hire. They'd be like, okay, let me see if they join, and then let me see, and then create the infrastructure. So, that's one example I wanted to actually share.
Thank you so much, Rukmini. I think that's very, very important that while we are looking at the workforce, we need to look at workplace solutions as well. And many times, there is a whole, positioning that reasonable accommodations are only for, a certain group, like generally associated with people with disability. But in my experience, I have really seen that these reasonable accommodations helps everyone. Even if some people are into some medical condition, unfortunately, or women in maternity at times, you never know. So it is so important to have reasonable accommodation in place proactively as an inclusive organization. That's, I think it was beautiful story. And in our organization last year, we also did a pilot, by hiring people with speech and hearing impairment, in certain roles, because most of our role is also, it includes sort of a voice calling, etc. But we wanted to see how we can consciously engage this diversity group. And one was the hiring, which of course, our hiring team was able to source the profile directly. But then we also engaged NGO to see that we can sensitize our people. And some very small stuff like the pantry areas, that the menu card is written everywhere, and the person doesn't have to go and ask, and it is written like a printed thing in bold so that people can read and understand it. Then the workstations, the important areas like the locker rooms, where is the exit, how do you enter, etc., the signages. So those were some things that we ensured, and I would say that it was parallelly going on, the reasonable accommodation and the people working together, and making this whole onboarding experience inclusive by ensuring that we had interpreters helping with sign language when the onboarding session was on. And the beauty was that, after 3 months of they coming in, now we see that on the floor, anything which is happening, any celebration, town halls, etc., people ensure that there's a live captioning which is going on. And the colleagues have picked up some of the sign languages like greetings, the clappings, and they know how they can converse. So when we are on the floor, it is hard to see that only these people are talking to each other. You can always see, other colleagues hanging around and talking. And I would say it's a beautiful organic evolution that many times we feel that we need this full-time interpreters only, then we can hire people who have speech and hearing impairment. And also, I think that it was very well demystified that, communication can be in any language, and nothing is a showstopper. And they are beautifully working and they're doing really well in the organization. So that has been, I would say, one of the pilot we did recently. The second was engaging women in a tier two city. There are offices, and we had couple of women who are the first time women in their families and communities stepping out into the world of work. And it was not just, I would say, sourcing were not limited only to the employee, but after offering, it was more like onboarding the family and ensuring that it is a safe place to work, and the girl, the women can step out and work in night shift also. And now we have many of our women who have joined us as fresher and they have grown as leaders. So I think this whole effort, I think building on what Samta and Rukmini you were saying, one is the impact in our own organization and creating that whole buy-in. But the other is the larger impact on the communities, from where they come from. They are the live success stories living it. And so, the other women, the gateways to the world of work opens for other women in that community. So I'm sure there are many more examples we all may have. And this is the area we all need to take up and do more on so that we can pace up this journey of, inclusion, the DEI. Now we move to the third question to Rukmini. Do your interview questions and evaluation criteria account for non-traditional career paths? Because many times for diversity cohorts, we always, it's not linear, right? There are various life stages and the career stages which come together, you know. So in your experience, how have you seen organizations, working on these areas? If you can share that with us.
Fine. I think we already answered a little bit around this, having structured interviews. Because I think it's very important when you have structured interviews, especially when you use DEI, you ask a lot of situational questions. But there is a small flip side to this. A lot of hiring managers or the interview panelists are very, traditionally only looking at, okay, this is the role, I need to ask questions only around this role. You actually forget to ask questions which humanizes the candidate, right? You also need to ask a lot of questions away from seeing only the role fit, but also culture fit. That is very important. And when you actually do that, when you actually ask questions where you're seeing a lot of culture fit, like, questions like what unique experiences have shaped your, approach to problem solving, or questions like what is something different that you did during your time off, right? Why these questions are to be asked is you become more inclusive to the talent pool. Because when you're asking questions, the candidate will be like, wow, okay, I can actually answer something which is not fully related to my job, but it adds to my skills, right? So that way, this caters to a lot of candidates who might have taken breaks, who are returning back, who are, maybe they might have been freelancing for a while, they might be consultants, and they might have applied to this role. When we move a little away from the traditional way of questioning and just being role focused, because most of them, when we ask BA questions, they'll be like, okay, I have 10 questions. I know the role is I'm hiring for A. I'm going to ask this 10 questions and I'm done. But you also need to structure it around asking questions based on different experiences that would they would have and probe further. Some candidates might just say, I don't have, or maybe this or that, or one line. But they also might be feeling like, oh, this is a weird or a different question. Because it's not a usual question that is asked in interviews. But I think from a DI perspective, this plays a very, very important role, especially when you ask these non-traditional questions. It helps the interviewer understand the candidate from a very different competency perspective, because VI has so many competencies where you can actually fit them into different competencies to understand, saying, oh, actually fits into this competency, but the answer might not have come if you would have asked a regular, role specific question that we usually do, right? So that is something very unique that I've seen in my experience as a recruiter. My mentors have also kind of, taught me this, and I ensure that when I conduct interviews, I ensure to ask these non-traditional questions, and they've actually really helped understand and identify different skill sets the candidate has, and it also helps the interviewer ward of bias, because you get to know a lot of those simple, smaller, beautiful experiences that the candidate would have had, and learn about their different skills that actually fits into the role you're hiring for. So I feel we need to look away from the traditional way of questioning. Of course, please use STAR, please use the different skill based assessments, because you really need to check the role fit, technical fit, yes. But there is a human part also to the candidate, which adds and brings in a lot of those skill sets that actually might match to what you're actually looking for. And this way, it increases your talent pool, right? You're able to look at more people who have taken career breaks, people who are switching, gears between careers, or people who are, like I said, consultants or anything. You start expanding your base of candidates when you flip to, the way you ask those experiential and humane questions for that particular role. So I think this is something from a DI perspective, I think it should be seen to break those traditional patterns, those systemic, patterns that we have.
Okay. Thank you for highlighting that, Rukmini. And considering the time that I can look at the screen, I would come to the last question. And Dr. Samta, if you can help us with that, the last question for the panel here will be, if you can highlight one crucial step, which is required for any organization to look at, when we are looking at building the diverse candidate pipeline, because we keep talking about building pipeline, right? So, what is that one crucial action you suggest, which we have not covered in discussion so far, to our viewers?
Quite interesting because that is a miss. And throughout the whole process of DI, one thing we have to be mindful is the psychological safety that we can offer. The safety that is social will come in later. But whether it is interviews, make it humorous, make it human, whatever you can do. But that is the psychological safety that you gather. To onboard the candidate or not onboard, to leave it for the other ecosystem to onboard him or her. I think it shouldn't be a challenge, but just provide the psychological safety to the DI candidates, whether they are in house, whether they are potential candidates for us, or whether we are building an ecosystem for the future. And that is the future also, because we are living in the AI world where everything is routed through AI. There is an automatic tracking system which reduces the resumes on your table. There is a systemic hiring that reduces. So the human touch has to be there, and this human touch should provide the safety to them. I think once it is there, people will be more than welcoming the organization instead of organization welcoming them. So I think the beauty lies in attracting the talent and so much so in retaining the talent. And I would just add to what Rukmani said in for the interview part of it, to add to whatever she said, I feel it is very strong not to hear what is not to hear only what is said, to hear what is not said, to observe and taking clues from Rukmani's being a reporter. I think observance, the picking of clues which are unsaid, unheard, unseen becomes very important when you are hiring for DI. Very, very important. Once you have done that, you will automatically give a psychological safety to the person, and that person will not be only for a day, for a year, or for 2 years, but they will be there forever with you as an organization. Rather, I will tell you, they will become your partners, the partners in augmenting the DI efforts of the organization. So this is the beauty. This is how it is taken. And with my experience, I feel that when we mobilize SAP candidates, this psychological safety we don't only give to the candidates. You will be zapped to know that this psychological safety, even their parents want, even their neighbors, who are their close neighbors, they want. And that is when they ask us that, can you come on Zoom? Can you show your infra on Zoom? Can you show your design on Zoom? So I call it sign for the design. So it comes from the top. Each top member has to have the buy-in for this design, whether it is infra design, whether it is mental design, whether they are mental blocks. Just sign it off for the design to accommodate this DI as the best strategy for you, not in terms of business. Not everything sense business, but you have to make everything sense business because it will be long lived. If I say no, I'm just doing DI efforts for the sake of doing it, I will not have buy-in from the business. So signing for the design is very important. Very
Thank you
crucial.
so much. Thank you
Pallavi.
so much for that, Dr. Samta. I think it is very bold, and I think we get another strong slogan from you, sign in for design. So I think it's beautiful. Um, I know there is a lot more that we could have talked about in the session, but as we started the pitch, that inclusion is a journey. We are all on the journey, and we are sure we are all building on the journey, and the viewers will also have got an opportunity to learn a couple of practices that our leaders shared from their workplaces. These are the practical live experiences from the leaders. So it's not scripted, it's not a book, it's not theory. They have done it, and we are talking about it. And it will be great if we can build on it together, all of us. I'm sure the viewers would also have had many other best practices to share. But let's build this journey together. The sourcing, you know, onboarding, they are very, very critical step when we talk about, employee life cycle. And we got some tips on, building psychological safety. We got some tips on how we need to focus on the JDs, how we have to ensure inclusive hiring process through, structured interviews, how we need to be curious, and it's okay to ask if we don't know rather than judging or uh, using a bias to make a judgment and lead conversations. We can leverage our ERGs for sourcing as well as retaining. Many times you only source for we only use it for sourcing, referrals, but how we can leverage it for retention and arresting the attrition in the organization. Branding is very important to our internal stakeholders. Create brands is what our leaders spoke. Our people are our brand, they are our asset. We need to leverage that, and also showcasing it enough outside so that our potential, candidates, potential stakeholders are also able to see what inclusion means to us as an organization. So, with that, we will close this panel discussion here. Thank you so much, Dr. Samta and Rukmini, for sharing your experiences. It was really my privilege to moderate this session. And thank you, IDF, for giving us this opportunity to come here on this platform and share our experiences. We look forward to building this journey together along with you as a network, and we look forward to our viewers benefiting for this conversation. Thank you, everyone.